All right, Baxter, let me paint a picture here for you, all right?
You're painting a picture.
Painting a picture. All right, so you're traveling with a group of friends, right? You're out in the woods, you're traveling along. You got an adventure you're on.
Are these beautiful blondes with me?
Why the hell not?
Why not?
Okay, so you are in a party with a group of beautiful blondes, and you're on a nice little quest, going to, I don't know, kill something, pick something.
Well, we're hunting Bigfoots, of course.
Hunting Bigfoots and just the Disney corporate office, and so you're as you're going along, and you've traveled for about a day or so. You're going along, and you decide, man, I'm really freaking tired, dude. I'm so exhausted.
I'm so tired.
I'm so exhausted, just bushed, and you just really want to put the mech on all these gorgeous blondes you're with, right? So what better place to do that than to build a camp and do that? So you set up camp right on the side of the road.
All right, yeah, they're all cutting the trees down, and I'm just relaxing with my coffee.
You're relaxing with your coffee. You got your feet up on a stump. You know, they're all these big burly barbarian type blonde ladies. They're all cutting down trees, and setting up tents and the fire for you. It's great. And so then, as you're snoozing by the fire, they're all asleep. You hear a sound. Oi! And you go, what the hell was that?
What the hell?
And you hear another.
Oh, I think you're all asleep, here.
And you go, what the hell is going on?
I don't remember being I don't remember being in London. What's going on there?
A bunch of cockney idiots out there. What's going on? All right, let's get in. Let's take your stuff. And out of the woods comes barreling a bunch of green guys, big pointy ears and big teeth coming out of their face. Huge. They're huge. But like 8 foot tall, big burly guys. Like, all right, we're gonna kill you now. And they start beating the hell out of all your gorgeous blondes, beat them to a bloody pulp.
My God.
They pick you up and they go, oh, I think we're gonna eat this one. And then you die. You die back, so you get eaten by these orcs. They're orcs.
Why does this always happen to me? Can I just go out and have camping one time?
Without death.
Without
death.
orcs. So it's orcs.
Orcs.
Orcs, I say.
Orcs. Orcs. Yeah, orcs.
Orcs. Hello and welcome back. I'm Howard T. Baxter of Completely Unbiased News, and I am your host. This is the Know Thy Enemy podcast. If you're just joining us, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It helps us defeat the evil algorithms, and share the video on the interwebs, Instagram, TikTok, all that stuff. Share the video. And joining me as always is our special guest, the General.
Hello.
The only man to survive the monster war.
Yeah,
Well, okay, I guess it was a couple, but
I was the best, though.
the best one.
I was the best one. So yeah, today we're talking about orcs. All versions of orcs. So we're gonna touch on a lot of stuff, and it might be skipping around a bit here, so just bear with us. But orcs are a real fun subject.
Yes.
So there's lots of different aspects. There's orcs in literature, which is actually where they started out. There's orcs in fantasy gaming, like D&D, Warhammer, stuff like that. And then orcs in later literature and lore, like for the 40k universe. That's a different type of orc. They're rather fun.
40k, that's the 30k, that's the like Harris Horsey, or Horus Heresy rather.
Yeah, 30k
not Heresy
is
Horus.
the Horus Heresy, and then 40k is the aftermath. But yeah, orcs play a big part in that too. They call them the greenskins, or just the orcs, and they all have stupid Cockney accents, and they're all idiots. It's great.
So do they?
They call themselves da boys, and everything has to have a Cockney accent. Like you can't have like a bolter gun. It's a bolter, and then they have flamers.
Is that actually a thing in 40k?
It is. The ones that are like psychic wizards. They call them weird boys.
I don't really think I like that at all. I thought they'd be a little more intimidating. You know, like
See,
rah, orcs.
They are. Everything, like their whole idea, their whole existence is built around they have to fight. They have to be involved in war. But the thing is, they were created in 40k to be the fun, goofy army that you could run in the tabletop game, if you really don't want to get into like the whole like brother, you just want to be like, all right, my boys go and destroy all your boys. We got our jumpers,
Okay. I guess I could be sold on that idea.
They're meant to be the comic relief, more or less.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Well, the Luna Wolves will completely destroy them.
You started reading, hell yeah.
I started the Horus Heresy, and I gotta say,
he started on first book.
Really,
sucks you right in, doesn't it?
Yeah, General, and this is a recommendation to everybody out there as well. Is you need to look up these books, 30k Warhammer or 40k or.
Yeah, just the Horus Heresy series is what I started on.
It's really fun. The guy, at least doing the narration that I have for the audiobook, is really good. He gets into it.
It's amazing voice.
It's really great.
It's so good. Yeah, it sucked me right in. I was sold. I think I'm like 30-something books into the series.
And there's just so many.
There's so many. There's hundreds of books for Warhammer.
It's nuts.
And that's just Warhammer like 40k. That's the space version.
Oh, yeah.
There's also the fantasy version, just Warhammer's Age of Sigmar stuff, and that's a whole nother set of things. It's like D&D's depressing cousin, more or less. But yeah, so orcs.
So orcs. So let me ask you a question. Kind of set this up a little bit.
Lay it on me.
Do we know the origins of orcs? Like perhaps the very first kind of incarnation of them, like the first person to invent them, I suppose.
Yes. The word orc derives from the Latin word orcus.
Everything's Latin.
Mm-hmm. Which basically means goblin, specter, or hell devil. Basically, they were orcs and goblins have been kind of synonymous with each other throughout the ages, up to J.R.R. Tolkien, who actually made the distinction in the Lord of the Rings books. In The Hobbit, they were one and the same. They were the same, contrary to a lot of belief. But if you actually go through the actual book and the actual addendums that he made the split between goblins and orcs in the actual Lord of the Rings books.
Well, I suppose in The Hobbit, now we're getting real nerdy here. In The Hobbit, they go to Goblin Town. Mm-hmm. I actually don't remember any mention of orcs. So they say orc too? I don't remember. Maybe
they
just sort
use
of
orc a couple times, but it's used interchangeably.
Okay, because I've gone over the book. I've read the book several times, and I suppose it just didn't resonate. It kind of just passed over my head because I'm a huge fan of the films and whatnot, so I just assumed and I guess it doesn't matter anyway at this point, because you can kind of read the book and still realize that they're two different things at that point too,
yes,
as well.
Yep. So that was kind of a retcon that he did, almost, in a sense.
Wow.
But orcs have been used as far back as in the old Anglo-Saxon. There was a translation of like hell devil for hell devil, which was interchangeable with orcus or orcus. In Beowulf, actually, there is a term that is orcneas, which is evil spirits. It's along with ogres and elves. Like the actual line, it's thence all evil broods were born, ogres, elves, and evil spirits, which is where it's orcneas. The giants also, who long time fought with God, for which he gave them their reward. That's from the John R. Clarke Hall translation from 1901.
Translation of what?
Of Beowulf.
Of Beowulf.
But yeah, the term orcneas is used, and that's the first real, in the English language, or the Old English language, first use of it having been seen there. Tolkien began the more modern use of the English word orc to denote his evil characters in the Lord of the Rings books. He took that from Old English and they're like orcneas, orcus, stuff like that, and he just wanted to create his own race of evil guys instead of them just being the goblins. So he created the divide there in the Lord of the Rings books, where he had the orcs and then the goblins. And the goblins were the sneaky ones that live in the mountains. The orcs were the big bad guys that served Sauron and did their junk out on the surface, basically.
Yeah, and as we know, he was a student of old literature and whatnot. Because, mm-hmm. I mean, he wanted to make his own myth. He wanted to make a myth for England and whatnot. And so he went back and studied all this mythology and whatnot. So, yeah, it's fascinating.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, orcs are basically the description of them now in all culture. Oh, we're going to get to that. That's fun. But yeah, in all different cultures and most forms of literature and whatnot, orcs are seen as humanoid, human shape, varying size, usually greenish or brownish or blackish skin. They got big teeth, usually got the big bottom teeth that jut out in most literature, even though it never says that in any of them. That's just something that kind of grew out of the fantasy obsession of like the 70s and the 80s.
Oh yeah, okay. So is there ever a specific, like an old folklore and whatnot, a specific, I suppose you could say, description?
Nope.
So no description of like,
Nope. Same with goblins. They were just kind of this thing, just like a creepy little thing, and they have slowly over time solidified into a version that is uniformly recognized. Just like elves. Elves never really got much of a description in the Lord of the Rings books. They were just seen as, beautiful and lithe and light-loving, and they loved starlight, stuff like that. But now it's, you think elf, you think tall, skinny, beautiful supermodel with pointy ears and blonde hair.
Yeah, I mean, or you could do the 1970s, I forget who did that, but the 1970s Hobbit film.
Oh, yeah, where they're blue, they got the stars.
Well, they're gray.
Yeah.
Basically made them, the wood elves, I suppose. The Mirkwood elves were all kind of gray. And that was their sort of interpretation of it, I guess, but...
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so then you get things like half-orcs, which are basically throughout literature where you have, it's half man, half orc, orcs that breed with humans or humans that are forced into being half-orc and all this creepy, crazy, weird stuff.
Well, so is that what, like, in the Lord of the Rings version, again, to do Tolkien's thing?
Mm-hmm.
Uruk-hai,
and then there's also, like, the dark men from the...
There's a fly in here.
But yeah, the dark men from the West that come in and they're doing, like, the spying work and everything, they're often suggested as being half-orc in a lot of the different, like, side books that he did, like all the different other stuff where he ran out of room, so he wrote other books explaining his previous books and whatnot, the addendums and the appendices.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, all the stuff that his son Christopher spent his entire life publishing, all that unpublished stuff.
Yep. Half-orcs appear in the Lord of the Rings, created by interbreeding of orcs and men. They were able to go in sunlight, unlike most of the other orcs, which are actually afraid of sunlight in the books. But the sly southerner in the Fellowship of the Rings looks more than half like a goblin. So that's what I was just talking about, where it's like you got that one character from the Lord of the Rings in the Fellowship of the Ring. He is, he's one of the spies that's sent out to look for them. I can't remember exactly when. There's even an orc that in the Return of the King, the orc that's put in charge of the army, the big lumpy looking one.
The film version.
He was based around Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah, and I remember that. Do you want to tell the story? Because it is funny.
Yeah. So with Peter Jackson, basically, I don't know all of it, but basically Jackson was rather upset with Weinstein for some reason or another, and modeled the horrible looking, nasty, lumpy orc after him. Yeah, go ahead.
So originally the films were being financed by the Weinstein Company originally, like Miramax and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so, which I believe he did own. So, and eventually the financing went over to Time Warner, of course, and then we got the beautiful masterpieces that are the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the extended versions and all that stuff. But yeah, so he was kind of pissed at Weinstein for whatever reason. It didn't work out, and so he designed the what was that character's name? It was a made up character for the film.
It's
but they understood they needed a
like
general.
Rashnock or something like that.
Yeah, like they needed a general on the ground, and it was actually played by the same actor that also did some of the other. I think I want to say Lurtz, but I don't think that's correct. Was
it the guy who played Lurtz as well? I can't remember.
The big Uruk-hai in the Fellowship that kills Boromir.
Yeah.
That was Lurtz, yes? No.
Yeah.
I believe so.
Yes.
Leave us in the comments.
Yeah, tell us if we're wrong. We're pretty sure. We're huge Lord of the Rings nerds.
Lord of the Rings nerds.
We're tired.
We can't think of everything.
But yeah, so we got, let's see here. But yeah, so from Tolkien, who basically popularized the use of orcs in literature, some other authors did go and take that even further. They took it in their own stuff. Hold on, let me get past all my Tolkien stuff here.
Well, yeah, because
another fiction here.
So a little bit of background here. So there were orcs, or goblins, so to speak, in ancient. We're talking about ancient folklore and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually, So Lord of the Rings were published in even like the 50s, I believe. So The Hobbit was in the 30s.
Mm-hmm.
And then Lord of the Rings, I think the last one was published in the 50s.
Yes.
And he sort of reinvigorated the orc type of thing.
Yes, that created the renaissance of fantasy writing, basically. What I was talking about, the craze in like the 70s and 80s.
Without a doubt in my mind.
That's holdover from that. That's after, Dungeons and Dragons gets created, and all of the subservient, like weird, like offshoots of that. Warhammer gets created after that. Everything it just kept snowballing into this frenzy of get the wizards and knights and orcs and demons and all this stuff, and it's great. Just fantasy media as a whole just bloomed after Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah, and then all the sword and sorcery films are not sand and sword and sandal. That's the epics over there. But we're talking about sword and sorcery, I believe, in like the 80s, and that's when you get Conan the Barbarian and
Willow.
Willow and all these other things.
Willow's fun. Willow's a fun movie.
I've still not seen Willow.
Oh, dude, we gotta get you to watch Willow.
But I've seen all the Conan, all the Conans, even the new one with.
It's not great, but it's a lot of fun.
Oh, Conan's actually, I really enjoy the first film. I think it's kind of legit.
Conan's fun, yeah. Conan.
Oh, you're talking about Willow.
Yeah, I was talking about Willow.
Oh, is that? I heard that's it. It's like it's a classic somehow.
Decent. It's a cult classic. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Well, the dude that plays Willow has a long history in
Warwick Davis.
Star Wars.
Yeah.
Warwick Davis is fantastic.
Yep.
Anyway, so Orcs.
He played Professor Flitwick in Harry Potter movies.
Oh yeah, he still gets around.
Yep. So in other fiction, in Mary Gentle's 1992 novel Grunts, with an exclamation point at the end. Orcs are basically infantry used as cannon fodder. A series of books by Stan Nichols, Orcs, First Blood, focuses on the conflicts between orcs and humans from the orcs' point of view. I'm going to need to read those because that sounds actually pretty interesting.
That sounds really, really
Unless
interesting.
they're ass. I'll have to. If you've ever read Orcs First Blood, let us know in the comments below, please, because I would like to read that, and I don't want to waste my time if they're absolute poo-poo,
They're absolute ass.
The absolute ass. In Terry Pratchett's Discworld series, orcs are close to extinction. In his Unseen Academicals, it said that when the evil emperor wanted fighters, he got some of the Igors to turn goblins into orcs.
Some of the Igors?
Some of the Igors, yeah.
What do you mean the character Igor? He just turned. That's like saying the Draculas.
I don't know. Ask Terry Pratchett.
Is that like saying the Draculas?
You can't ask Terry Pratchett. He's dead. So
they were like, oh man, there were lots of Draculas.
Yeah. But yeah, they basically were used as weapons in a great war, and they were encouraged by whips and beatings, very much similar to how they were encouraged by their taskmasters of Mordor in the Lord of the Rings books. But yeah, so orcs have a rich history in more modern folklore, in modern literature rather than in ancient things. As far as folklore goes, orcs were just kind of a term used for evil spirits and goblins and stuff like that. They're more present in literature than they are in folklore.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
This is actually kind of fascinating. So an orc really is kind of a modern type of thing.
Yes.
Because in the old literature, and going, hundreds of years, thousands of years, they would include ugly creatures, but they were just demons, right?
Goblins, demons, just freaky little things that would come at you and fight you. But yeah, they weren't really termed orcs until later on. Tolkien kind of owns the key to orcs being a thing, more or less. He was the one who took just the word that was kind of interchangeable for evil spirit and using it as his own damn thing, basically.
I did not know that.
Yep. So
that is fascinating.
He did kind of the same thing with elves, where elves were just seen as like just Feywild creatures that would trick you and haunt you or build shoes and stuff like that, and he turned them into like an actual race of beautiful, lithe people, like I described it.
Well, and I think also was because elves. Oftentimes you think of like Santa Claus elves.
Yes,
the shorter ones that you've probably seen. I haven't met Santa Claus. You probably met Santa Claus.
I've met Santa Claus
a couple times.
He and I.
Oh wait, I forgot. We had.
Listen,
he was there during the war.
Santa loves a good dark ale, and that guy can drink anybody under the table. Let me tell you, drunk Santa, he's definitely one of those I love you drunks. And he's just big, jolly guy. He gives you the best freaking hugs. Drunk Santa hugs are some of my favorite experiences of my whole life. He just makes you feel so safe and so just seen and heard and felt like he makes you feel just very validated. Just everything's all right. You could skin a puppy in front of me. Worst day of my life. I just witnessed a horror. It's terrible. You blew up an orphanage. Santa comes up after 13th Smithix. And it just comes up, gives you a big hug, and says, "This is there, buddy. This is going to be okay." And then you're just like, "Oh, thank you. Thank you." And you just feel better.
Wow, I have so many questions. I mean, but maybe perhaps in one of the adventures of Baxter and the General, we might eventually meet him.
We should do an episode where we go drinking with Santa. That'd be fun.
Well, we have a bunch of episodes. If you want to check them out.
In my contacts, I'll give him a call. We'll go drink with Santa.
I mean, that sounds...
If you want to experience this...
Well, that's out of my mind. That sounds great. Yeah. But we have fought the Greer. Actually, the Greer is one of his arch nemesis.
Yeah, the Greer was a bastard.
But that's...
At least
that's different. But anyway, yeah, so the short little elves. And then was it Tolkien that came up with the idea then, to come back around to that, was it Tolkien that came up with the idea then to make the elves taller?
He never specifically says they're taller. Never once. And never once... Basically, elves were seen throughout folklore as just like fey beings. Just like fairies were very rarely seen as actual like little dinky people. That's sort of like a Tinkerbell thing. That comes from like Peter Pan. Fairies were just seen as these beings, like even having the wings and stuff like that. Not a very common thing in folklore.
All right, well then where did this idea come from? Because he's very... Tolkien likes to go on and on, describe everything, describe the trees and how everything works and what they ate for breakfast.
He was incredibly vague describing these races, weirdly enough.
Well, yeah, that's what's weird, as I don't understand, because in the films, I mean, it's very clear in terms of size. You got the hobbits, the dwarves, humans, elves, and then wizards. Are the wizards the tallest?
The wizards, maybe. It depends. I know that Gandalf is described as being very tall. But, like, the only people in the Lord of the Rings lore that are specifically, like, very specifically noted as being diminutive in size are the hobbits and the dwarves.
Oh, absolutely, because obviously hobbit hole in the ground and all that kind of thing.
Yep. But, yeah, the elves it's left very ambiguous as to what size they are and stuff like that. And just over time, like I said, with the D&D... They were seen, like they're listed in their race stats as being shorter than humans, but still of normal size, but very thin and lithe and stuff like that. And that has perpetuated an image in the pop culture mind for what elves are supposed to look like, which then was sort of the inspiration for making the elves into these
just taller,
hunky supermodels in the Lord of the Rings and Hobbits movies, the Peter Jackson films.
Very smooth.
And then later in the television series that shall not be named.
We don't... All right, so moving on. All right, so we have orcs and goblins. Does this sort of cross over with goblins? Or are we still on the orcs kind of thing?
With goblins, they sort of have... basically, the way they've sort of split in the modern zeitgeist is that you have orcs as being the big ones and goblins are the small ones.
That's actually pretty true.
And how that differentiation came about, I think, is actually from the way they were described in the Lord of the Rings books, with the orcs being the more warlike ones and the goblins being the ones kind of cowering in the caves of Khazad-dûm.
Okay, yeah, so I could see how that could be interpreted kind of that way. I guess if you're crawling around caves and things, you might be smaller and, more
I don't know, and
more slinky, I guess.
Goblin-like.
more like a goblin. But also...
No, you go ahead.
World of Warcraft.
Yes. So, I was actually going to get to games here.
So the movie was pretty bad. But in the movie, which I suppose is, because it's my only reference, really, because I haven't played the game. Shock, I know. But I've seen other people play it, and the goblins they're big, or the orcs, rather, big and green. Or am I... Oh, okay, so they are.
Yep. That's basically, that all comes a lot from, again, where the popularization in media leading to Dungeons and Dragons being built, and then the popularity of Dungeons and Dragons when it first came out, and the growing popularity over time, where orcs were seen as an enemy type, but if you wanted to play as a race of orcs, there was half-orcs, basically, that were closer to human size. So true orcs are big, massive, giant, lumbering hulks of muscle and very little brain, whereas the half-orcs were a little more manageable. Like, they're like, 6 foot to 8 foot tall, just big, beefy, pig people.
So there's even, in this particular interpretation, there's variance.
Yes, absolutely. But yeah, D&D has done a lot for the modern image of what orcs are in the modern interpretations of them. There was that weird, I think it was called Light. It was like a TV show or a movie where there was the orc cop that was...
Oh, Bright.
Bright. Yeah.
I didn't see it, but
I didn't either, but the orcs looked pretty cool in that, but they were bigger, they were human-like, but they were beefy.
From what I can... Yeah, I only remember the poster because I didn't see the show.
Orcs almost unilaterally are shown as being just big and dumb. Like, big, strong, dumb. Like, they're the muscle, not the brains of the operation. They're the brawn. And so they're often seen as henchmen as well. How many times you see like a cartoon or something like that, you get orcs or something like that, and there's always like a dark wizard leading them or something like that. Because they're dumb. They can't lead themselves. And if they do, they create these barbarian tribes like in the Warhammer stuff. Warhammer made orcs very popular again, where they are even bigger. They're huge. They got the big tusks coming out and stuff like that. They hate magic, and even if there is a wizard orc, they're kind of shunned. Stuff like that.
They hate magic.
But yeah, because they're strong. They're strong. Why would you use weird magic stuff when you could just punch something in the face? Punch it dead. Why would you use spells?
I don't know.
It's that sort of idea. They're big dumb green people. That's what it is.
Like the green bean man or whatever. Beans.
I'm gonna pretend I know what you're talking about.
Beans and peas.
You're talking about the Jolly Green Giant?
Yeah, there we go.
The canned food mascot?
I forgot that the general doesn't eat vegetables.
No, vegetables are gross. I don't eat nothing comes out of the ground. I just
the Jolly Green Giant. I know he's not a goblin, so
yeah, green beans are my food's food.
Fair enough.
But so even in more modern the more modern eye, just recently, Baldur's Gate 3 came out. Baldur's Gate 3, you can play as a half-orc, and orcs are prominent in there. There's the main character that everybody wants to bang that is mean to you the entire time. She's a half-orc. I think either that or Githyanki, I can't remember which. Correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't played yet. I was waiting for some of the hype to die down and see if it was actually good before playing it. So let me know if she is an orc or half-orc or Githyanki. I can't remember.
Well, I could add something to this, is that I've heard that, it has it's either the best score or the third best score ever on Metacritic for a video game.
It looks phenomenal.
It's like a 9.6, which is better than the new Zelda game, Tears of whatever.
It looks absolutely phenomenal, and it's literally just like virtual D&D.
And they didn't screw it up, apparently. Yeah. They actually stayed true to the franchise and the lore and all these different types of things. That's what I hear from... And Baldur's Gate is an offshoot of D&D.
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Yep. Officially licensed by Wizards of the Coast.
So and that's about all I know.
Yeah, and that's why I was holding off, is because there was so much hype behind it, because the two other Baldur's Gate games were so great back in the day, and this one's been in production for gotta be close to 10 years or something like that, if not longer, maybe 15.
That's what I've heard.
So there was so much hype behind it that I was like, there's no way they're going to pull it off. And they did. So I'm going to be buying
apparently it's a great game.
Yeah, it looks phenomenal.
In between, monster hunting and, looking for Bigfoots and things, we can play some video games.
Yeah. The way I keep my sanity.
Yeah, well.
But
all the witches will make you go nuts.
I've also been hit in the head a lot. But yeah, so
Oh, hit in the head. Oh, okay. I didn't understand what you meant there.
and I'm the dumb one.
No, I thought you said hitting the head.
I've been hitting the head.
Hitting
People-
the head
I have a very large head. It's easy
could
to
mean
hit.
that you go to the toilet a lot to puke.
I do throw up often, but it's mostly because I've been hitting the head so many times.
Okay, yeah. So the never-ending,
Lasting pervasive brain damage.
never-ending concussion.
My brain looks like, basically at this point, it looks kind of like a catcher's mitt. It's all mottled and weird in a weird shape. But that's why I wear the helmet. Keep me from losing any more brain
wouldn't you
cells.
think that the helmet would help?
Doesn't help that much.
Remember, actually, funny story. So the general comes home one day and he's like, I got a package in the mail, and they open it up. It's a new helmet. It's too big.
Yeah, it was like a freaking tub. It was crazy. It was like a freaking plastic tote thing sunk down about past my ears.
Yeah, remember, it was too big, which we thought was really odd because you have a huge head.
I considered drilling eye holes in it in order to wear it like a full-on medieval helmet. Thought that might protect my beautiful face and mustache, but all in all, it was just too much work. So there it sits on the shelf, never to be used. So orcs,
Fantastic.
so now we'll go. I want to touch on orcs in Warhammer a little bit because that's been sort of the modern run of orcs that have, aside from any of the Lord of the Rings films and the TV show and all that jazz, the other main source of orc lore has been from the Warhammer universe. I'm going to touch more on the 40k orcs rather than the Age of Sigmar orcs, just because those are very close to D&D.
Okay,
Go ahead.
so just add a little bit of context for those people that might not know. What is Warhammer? What is Warhammer 40k? And what is the Sigmar or whatever?
Yeah. Okay. So Warhammer is it's a shared universe with two sides of a coin. Basically, it shares the same lore for a lot of the races. It shares the same sort of like version of hell and the chaos gods and stuff like that. It's a shared universe that has a lot of different aspects that are similar. Whereas Age of Sigmar is the medieval fantasy version, whereas Warhammer 40k is the science fiction version.
Okay, and this is a video game. This is a tabletop game as well.
This is
tabletop strategy.
Started
game.
out as this tabletop strategy game. There's been
Little
several
figures
video
that you
games.
paint.
There's been several video games for both universes.
Total War.
Shitloads of books, and I mean
so many
shitloads. I find the 40k stuff more interesting just because
Follow the Emperor.
Space is more fascinating for me. It's a lot of fun. Basically, Warhammer 40k, the story is that I'm going to put this in as few words as possible just because I can go on for hours. Basically, Earth runs its course until about the year 20,000. We reach our pinnacle of technological advancement, and then there's a crazy, it's called a warp storm. Basically, humans have figured out that there is an alternate dimension underneath our dimension that is fueled by emotion. It's basically hell. It's just crazy. It's filled with these horrible, demonic, godlike beings. And the fastest way to get from point A to point B is to rip a hole into this alternate dimension, and it's sort of like going into slip space in Halo or light speed in or hyperspace in Star Wars, or warp speed in...
Oh yeah, you had it correct.
Yeah.
Light speed,
yeah.
Star Wars, warp speed, Star Trek.
Star Trek.
Both destroyed franchises.
Woo!
But anyway,
Halo as well. But,
Warhammer. Oh yeah, Halo. That show. Ugh.
Master Cheeks. But anyway, basically it's a means to an end. You gotta fly through
It
hell.
shows violence.
Yeah, you gotta fly through hell to get to your destination faster.
What book? What? I didn't even. This is fascinating. I just thought eventually they discovered space in the outside universe, and they're trying to pull in all these lost civilizations.
Well,
of
we're getting
humans.
there. We're before that. We're not quite there yet.
All right. Well.
Basically, like again, I'm gonna. Try
Let's try to Yeah.
So basically,
What's the elevator pitch?
There's a giant warp storm. Basically, too turbulent, shuts off humanity from
right.
all of our colonies and all the different places. It's this age of darkness where humanity stagnates and they all start fighting amongst each other on Earth, and you get these techno-barbarians, everybody's warring tribes, total war. This dude, who's the best dude, he's the best dude. The best guy. This dude shows up. He's huge. He's tall, like 10 feet tall. Glowing yellow eyes, big flowing black hair. Wearing golden armor. He's got like a halo around him. He's the best guy. He's the best dude.
He's Tommy Wiseau.
He's like, imagine Tommy Wiseau and Jesus all wrapped up into like the Hulk spot. Yeah. Hey guys,
hey,
I'm here to help and fix it. So he begins just killing everybody that stands up to him until he creates a unified Earth, and then he gets in his ships and he goes out, find all his lost colonies. There we are. Now we're at 40k. That's what it is. It's Earth in the year 30,000, and then it stagnates again, and everything's terrible in 40,000. Warhammer 40k. The idea is everything's awful, and we love it. Everything is terrible. Everything's depressing and horrible and violent and terrible. The troops die, and their bodies are reformulated into corpse starch, which is what they eat on the battlefield. Like, it's awful. It's in a horrible world, and that's what makes it so fascinating. Orcs are a big part of it. Orcs are an alien race that is a big enemy of the Imperium of Man, and they are orcs spelled with a K rather than a C, and they are a fungus-based life form. They're basically giant green walking mushrooms that are hell-bent on war. That's their whole thing, is they are war incarnate, and they call it WAAAAAAAGH! Specifically. We'll put it up on screen, how it's spelled. It's different.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, they're big, they're green, they're hard to kill. They believe that the biggest orc is the best orc, so they follow him. They call themselves the Boys, and they have their own gods in the warp, Gork and Mork, who are constantly fighting each other, and they like it that way. And so they are one of the biggest threats to humanity because they are just this endless green tide. You can't stop them. They just keep coming. What one orc spore shows up on a planet, you're screwed. You can't get rid of them. So you got to burn the planet.
The Imperium will defeat them.
Yes. Actually,
more or less.
There's a big... I don't know how far along in the book you are, but in the first book, they do play a big part in it later on. They talk more about it. Anytime they bring up the greenskins, that's who they're talking about.
Well, as of right now, we're following Logan, and he was just in a meeting.
What a name for that guy, too. Garviel Loken. It's such a good name.
Oh. I don't remember the first part. I just remember a Logan. Maybe his other name hasn't been revealed yet?
Yep, Garviel Loken.
Well, all those names are pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
I can't think of them at the top of my head, but...
Abaddon.
Yes.
You got Abaddon. You have
Abaddon.
Saint, I can't remember.
Well, whatever, yeah.
They're amazing names.
Yeah.
But basically, the orcs have this special ability where they have a special relationship to the warp, which is full of emotion, where if they believe something is true, it's probably going to end up being true. So they paint all their vehicles red because they think red is the fastest color. And lo and behold, their little planes and their little cars that are painted red go faster than the other ones.
They go faster.
They create these guns out of just shit they pick up off the ground and weld together. And they shoot bullets because they believe that this hunk of junk will shoot bullets. There is a long-standing joke in the Warhammer community that you have this group of humans that are beleaguered by an endless tide of orcs trying to kill them, and they run out of ammo until the one guy gets the bright idea of, man, if they think that we still have ammo, they're going to keep getting shot and everything. So the one guy goes up and just starts going with his hand, bang, 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 bang. And wouldn't you know it, orcs, believing that they're firing bullets at them, start getting shot and dying. Until you get a group of orcs coming up over a hill going, I'm a tank, I'm a tank, I'm a tank, I'm a tank. It's weird and stupid, but it works.
That is very bizarre. And this is eventually in the 40k?
This is the 40k universe, yep. This is, it's crazy. They think that the biggest orc is the best orc. And so there's Gaskell, who's like the head honcho orc in the quote unquote, the modern iteration of Warhammer, like the most current expansion of the lore,
right?
Where they just took a bunch. He was the biggest orc, but he wanted to be a bigger orc, so he told his doctors to kill him and cut him up, and stitch them together with other orcs to make them even bigger and beefier. And they all believed it would work, so it did. And he comes back, and he's this giant orc. He's huge, giant freaking dude.
Wow.
It's really weird, but kind of funny that basically they believe something is true, and the chances are it becomes true.
That is very fascinating.
Yep, they believe that like checkered print, like a chessboard, makes you stronger.
Checkered print.
So they have like that's one of the famous color schemes that they use is checkered print on a lot of stuff. It's fascinating. It really is. But yeah, so they're this endless tide of war, and if they run out of people to fight, they'll fight themselves because they just love fighting. That's their favorite thing is fighting. War isn't this horrible thing to be experienced or to be suffered through. War is joy. War is their religion, basically. They love fighting. Wow. God, if you're bored, start a fist fight with your buddy. That's the best thing in the world. And both of them will thank the other for it. Like, oh, that was great.
So
Go ahead.
So is it kind of like a less elegant version of the Spartans?
Yes, absolutely. That is a great way of putting it. They are the most garbage can, like scummy raccoon version of the Spartans, where they're just, and again, they all have these horrible Cockney accents. Everything that's written about them has Cockney accents. All their stuff, the speedas and the meltas and the botas and it's you know their war cry that when they create like a crusade to go out and fight people, they call it a WAAAAAAAGH because that's war with a Cockney accent. It's WAAAAAGH.
Oh yeah, for sure.
WAAAAAAAGH. And so anytime it's Gazgul started a WAAAAAAGH against humanity, and it always has an exclamation point at the end. It's so fun.
Gazgul.
But yeah, and I could go on for hours about 40k orcs. They are absolutely fascinating specimens. So we're not going to touch too much on how to defend against a Warhammer orc because those aren't real. We're going to talk about real orcs that exist in that I have fought in the Monster War and how to defend against them.
Okay. So to touch on that though, and all of this was influenced by the Tolkien stuff probably.
Yes. We're not sure how orcs in reality came to be, but we're pretty sure it was some sort of thought permutation that came about. Just the growth of popularity with them in the modern eye seeded them throughout history or something like that. It's that sort of idea of thinking and creating your own reality. Like you think something and it becomes true.
Well, you're talking about the Monster War now. You're talking about...
Yes, in the Monster War.
During the Monster War where there was Bigfoots. Well, there still is Bigfoots, but the Bigfoots and all the other monsters and Draculas and various things. We're talking about those orcs.
Yes, those orcs. They're big, they're green. They're not as big as like in a lot of literature and games and stuff like that, but they're pretty big. They're beefy. They got the big teeth. They're mean. They're just mean bastards, but we had them on either side. There was some on fighting for humanity because they figured that if humanity died, who else would there be to fight? And there was majority of them on the monster horde side just because they're monsters. But basically an orc, with them being the way they are, the best way to take one out is you just kill them till they're dead. You just keep hitting it until it stops moving.
Okay. So
that's the first thing you're going to want to do. Get a stick, get a gun, get a knife, get a sword, get a cannon. Just something. Just keep hitting it with stuff until it stops moving. That's the best way to take out an orc. In any universe, reality or any literature, you just keep beating them till they stop twitching.
I mean, yeah, honestly, yeah. They just use a blunt object of some kind.
Yep. The longer the better, because you don't want to get too far up close to them, because they're strong. They're strong suckers.
What kind of weapons do they have?
They use all kinds of different stuff. During the war, there was a lot. Depends on when we fought them. The earlier years, way back when, there was a lot of big clubs and sticks and scimitars and big knives and axes.
So the usual typical kind of stuff where usual typical stuff. There's, the kind of the janky looking edgy swords and big old axes and
in the more modern ages, up till the war ended in 1947, it was sort of more like there was a lot of like AK-47s they used just because those things don't break and they like to hit people with them.
I could see that.
It really is a reliable weapon, honestly. I'm kind of sad that that's a Soviet-made weapon because the AK-47 is an elegant weapon system.
I could see that, yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of AKs used by the Orcs. They got a hold of a lot of the 1911 pistols, just because same thing. You can't break those suckers. They are just a reliable ass weapon. They used a lot of just the simple, reliable firearms. There was a lot of swords, just a lot of like single-edged weapons. You couldn't really give them a katana because they'd break them. They're too fragile.
Well,
just big meaty stuff.
It's probably too elegant for the clumsy orcs anyway.
I would say so. Well, yeah.
Clumsy orcs, they wouldn't be able to use it.
That's what I mean. They're using them in such a ham-fisted way that it breaks it, because the way a katana is, it's very, very sharp, but very brittle, because the way the iron is folded and everything. If you hit it hard, like sideways, it's going to snap. And those guys don't have great aim when they're swinging. They want something big. That's why there's a lot of clubs even used up until the end of the war.
Wow.
Yeah.
I guess we know thy enemy.
Yeah, it was a crazy time, especially Battle of the Bigfoots. Last battle of the war was some of the most harrowing shit I've ever seen in my life. You know, you got your Bigfoots coming at you, but there was also orcs on the flanks, just with their AK-47s firing like mad. And I tell you what, those suckers, they run out of ammo. They'd grab those things by the freaking by the muzzle, and they just beat the shit out of people with them. I mean, that was horrible.
Well, we haven't come across orcs in our in our show, but we have come across a gork.
A gork is a half goblin, half orc. Less impressive than both, really. They kind of they're pretty strong, but you know, whereas goblins are pretty quick and speedy and kind of good at hiding and stuff like that. And orcs are bigger and stronger. Gorks are they're closer to an equal match for a human being, but they're just vile. They're horrible.
Oh, I agree. Absolutely.
Big
100%.
Noses, yellow and green color.
Green. Oh, yeah. They were... Yeah, yellow and green. You're right. Yeah. Not just green.
We'll throw up some pictures, I'm sure. Show it.
Throw up some video.
I beat the piss out of a gork on camera. It was pretty great. Beat the absolute dog shit out of it. It was great.
Yeah, checked out. Check out that video.
But, yeah, so basically that's more or less all I got for orcs. You got any questions for me there, Baxter?
So do we know the origins? I know we've been over this kind of, but just to come back around to the very beginning.
In folklore or in reality?
Well...
To answer the question for both are very vague. In reality, the ones we fought during the war, we're not sure where they came from. They just kind of showed up throughout history, sort of simultaneously. We don't know if it was some sort of bad spell or something like that, or some sort of thought thing that happened. I don't know. They just kind of
could even come up from outer space. You never know.
Quite possibly, and I really hope they weren't like the 40k kind.
The Garkiverse.
They're still here. But then you got these... in literature, it was basically Tolkien that popularized them. Again, it was just... There was some mentions of the word orcos to mean like goblin and stuff like that. But Tolkien is the one that took the scalpel and kind of made the divide between orc and goblin.
Because right, which makes perfect sense, because then again, you know, fantasy became popular again,
yes,
or even more so than perhaps before.
Mm-hmm.
And he did all of his research on mythology and literature and different things all throughout history to come up with his own myth.
Yes.
And then we end up with what we have now.
Yeah. Which is fun as hell, honestly. They make a great bad guy.
Well, 100%.
They make a great creature to be a bad guy, because they're meant to be these big, brutal, dumb things to hit with a stick. And I love that. I love seeing that.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. 100%.
But yeah, that's about all I got, so I'm cool with wrapping this bad boy up here.
All right. I guess we'll wrap it up, everybody.
But yeah, if you liked what you see from us and you think you learned something, and we have bettered your day and eaten up an hour that might have otherwise been spent doing drugs, robbing a bank, burning an orphanage. Instead, you did something here and you learned something. So that's a positive, and I think that is worth a like, and maybe even a subscription if you really like this and you want to watch more. But definitely a like. We stopped you from doing meth for an hour, so you are welcome.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. So thanks again. Thanks again for joining us on the Know Thy Enemy podcast. And again, if you're just joining us, take a second, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this video with your friends.
Yep.
It doesn't cost you anything.
Check out our other stuff. Let us know in the comments if there's something you'd like us to cover, some creature, cryptid, monster, even a subject. Doesn't even have to be anything like that. You want us to talk about a movie or something, we'll do it. Like, hell, we're bored. We want to make more stuff for you. You let us know what you want to learn about. We'll probably do it. Now, just tell us in the comments. Tell us if you like this. Tell us fun facts you have, things that I didn't cover that you think people should know, things that I covered incorrectly. If you think we're stupid as hell, tell us.
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
That's engagement. Joke's on you.
I'd like to thank like to thank the General for coming on the podcast again.
You're very welcome. Anytime.
And
we live in the same house. I can't really escape you.
Well, you know.
And let's face it, this mustache, the ladies love it. So we get a lot of views that way. Look at this. That doing something for you? Turning you on?
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next time.
In the comments, tell me if this mustache makes you horny. Bye.